them.
All right. Are we audible? I guess. All right, thank you very much. Good to have you all on this panel. We are going to be celebrating MICE on this discussion, and I'm sure the audience is going to benefit with all the enriching. You're going to talk about how your companies are playing out on this segment and how the segment has actually propelled India and the performance of the hotel segment in the last 3 to 4 years, especially post the wave of the pandemic. So looking forward to a very insightful and enriching session. So I think this question is going to be for all of you, and the question is that how has the MICE landscape changed for your company over a period of time in the context of India? So do we start with you? You have a lot of story to tell about HICC and everything over the last few years, so maybe you start.
Okay, sorry. So obviously the MICE landscape has changed quite a bit since the pandemic, with much more hybrid events, I would say, which interestingly are still here to stay. So we noticed that that people want to be able to connect to events as well, not only, so even when it's a face-to-face get-together, so we should have really an hybrid option. So this is maybe one of the key changes, I would say. And then for India, I think we've seen the rise of destination weddings. So this, it was one of the first markets to recover, and it's here to stay as well. So with more intimate weddings, which again is a trend that has been maintained while the big weddings were back.
Okay, I think there might be an audio issue because I obviously couldn't hear anything, but there's a problem. You could hear, not hear. Can the audience hear what she's just, okay, as long as the audience can listen, that's fine, and I'll just nod my head. All right. Okay, Amit, for you, from the time that Hyatt came into India, and what all did you experience with the opening of your large hotels?
Hi, good morning everyone. So for Hyatt, I think, so when you're saying MICE, we also include the Smurf segment, the social and particularly the weddings. So that has always been an integral part of our focus has been there with our brands, particularly the Grand Hyatt, the Hyatt Regencies. So there has been a big focus. We have hotels like Grand Hyatt Mumbai, which have been quite focused on meetings, conferences, and social events. So I think the shift that has happened to us is primarily, I would say, more on the upscale space, where we have the Hyatt Place brand. When we launched that brand 12 years back in India, it's supposed to be select service in western part of the world. So when we launched that, we were looking at limited meeting space, but over a period of time we have understood that you require more event space there as well. So we have changed that, and some of our new age Hyatt places, like the Hyatt Place in Bharuch, that has around 6,000–7,000 square feet of meeting space. Vadodara has 6,000 square feet banquet space.
And hold that, because I have a question about mid-scale and upscale hotels and how the meeting space equates there. So hold on to that.
Fine. So
do tell me, how many of your hotels, how many do you have in India now across, how many Hyatt hotels?
So we have 41 operational hotels in India.
And how many of those have meeting space above, let's say, 1,500 square meters?
We have around 16 or 17 hotels that have meeting space more than 1,500 square meters.
That's a good number. Pass it on to Shampa.
Thank you.
Marriott's story in India, huge convention centers.
It's a long one, but I'll keep it short.
All right.
Well, to begin with, I think MICE for Marriott is right in the heart of the center of our growth story when it comes to convention hotels. I simply say this because 30% of our revenue comes from groups and meetings worldwide, and this is as of 22. So needless to say, this is very, very important and growing. Like in this city itself, we offer more than 2,000 plus sleeping rooms to a MICE planner, as an example. Worldwide, we have more than 1,200 convention hotel networks that ranges right from 1,000, that can accommodate 1,000 attendees to 40,000 with Gaylords as a brand. Closer home in India, I think we have more than, out of 150 plus, we have more than, out of the 16 brands, 10 full-fledged brands of us in full service offer MICE quality options to the planners.
As of today, you have 150 open hotels in India.
Oh yes, we opened our 150th one with the JW Goa yesterday, which was officially announced. Thank you.
How many of these 150 have more than 2,000 square meters of meeting space?
Oh, that will be more than 70.
How many?
More than 70 hotels will have more than 2,000 square feet of.
Okay. 17?
Square meters?
Yes.
Oh, I'll reduce it by 50%.
All right. Still a good number.
So that gives you a statistics and sense of, I think we are a very important player for the industry because of the length and the breadth and the scale of economy that we have today in that segment.
Right. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Your homegrown brand, Smita. How has ITC's story been and how has MICE evolved in your hotels across the decades?
Yeah, so good morning everyone. So for ITC Hotels, we are a food forward company. MICE has a significant relationship with food. That being said, 23% of our revenue is from MICE business, which includes weddings. And about 21% of the room nights are contributed by MICE. So it is basically a very, very significant segment for us. Having said that, to your question, which you're going to ask me, how many of our hotels are over 1,500 square meters of event space? So not many out of the 42 in the ITC hotels, which includes from ITC, Mementos, Story, and Welcome Hotel. There are about 8 hotels who have that much of space.
Of how many in total?
Out of 42.
42.
Yes,
okay.
yes. So, so there's going to be a lot of strategy around MICE going forward as we are sort of growing through through our managed portfolios. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to come back to all of you for numbers and statistics, and thanks for touching upon that for a bit. But I'm going to come back. But let me just ask this question to somebody who carries forward the illustrious legacy of the family that actually put Udaipur on the map the way it is today. So could you, Lakshyaraj, tell us a little bit about how you and your family had that belief in Udaipur as a destination and what you did to put it on the map, especially when it comes to luxury, intimate, boutique weddings?
Well, greetings and good morning to one and all, firstly. Thank you so much for that wonderful question. I think it really allows me to just give a bit of a brief and a background to people to be able to understand Udaipur better. First and foremost, I think the credit in this really goes to my grandfather with the vision that he really had earlier when things changed, scenarios changed, the economical conditions changed, and that's when we decided to convert our homes into family, our homes into hotels, and our family spaces to be able to be shared with the public and the rest of the world. Obviously, it wasn't easy. It came with a lot of criticism to the extent where people didn't believe the fact that we were going to be able to do something of it or make something of it. And I think these are perhaps one of the most responsible forums where I need to thank the Tata Group, firstly, to be able to make and help in putting Udaipur where it is as well today. I'm very, very happy and proud to share the fact that it is the longest standing association in independent India where the two houses have been together for 50 years. And
congratulations.
And grandfather went up straight to them saying that, listen, we don't know anything about hospitality. You are the professionals. You've been doing it far longer than we have been. And on a handshake is when Lake Palace was born. And today we all know the fact that it's perhaps one of the most recognized hotels and one of the most celebrated hotels in the world. And then father came in and took the business to the next level, took it up. And then that's when we really realized the potential in the late 80s, talking about the MICE segment, talking about it specifically in terms of the entertainment and the wedding segment. And that's where Udaipur really grew and found its own recognition, found its own niche, that yes, this is where it's going to be able to do something and leave an imprint on the world map. And we were always the firm believers of the fact that we're not here to celebrate or just sell our properties, but we are really here to sell the destination. And the beautiful part is that that got in the Leela, that got in the Uberois, that got in the raffles today. The first ever raffles that has opened up in India, has opened up in Udaipur. We just welcomed the ITC not too long ago, and that is what we pride ourselves on. And that is what we really celebrate. So all the strong brands that exist within the country and some of the outside of the country are now all present in Udaipur, talking about Udaipur to the rest of the world.
Wonderful. So do you recall how this idea came into being of putting a meeting room which has the crystal gallery around it? Whose idea was it, and how did it come into being?
I think that absolutely, that particular thought and ideology goes to Dad. I think weddings earlier were exceptionally personal and limited to people's home. Then slowly over a period of time, with all these sort of things and ideas being floated within the market and to the world, and making an industry today which is a $1 trillion industry in our country, the wedding industry, which was not being taken seriously earlier, venues which we didn't know how to use or what we can do with them beyond just a few corporate events and all of that. Suddenly the world opened up to having weddings. People were happy to be able to travel and go out and get their members of their family married, put all these areas to use, put all the bigger areas to use where you can have 1,000 people, 1,500 people, or intimate weddings where there were just 200 people or 100 people. So the entire genre that kind of exists, where people really want to be able to celebrate an event and have an occasion. And that has led us to like for example, a couple of days ago we had a family who was visiting, and that is, I think, a sense of achievement. I don't even think that even they realized, but when the conversation happened, I think it was just very, very beautiful. And 4 decades of work that really kind of showed in was the fact that, oh, we were really thinking about doing something in Lake Como, or should we do it in this lake here in Udaipur? Awesome. Now, that is the journey that has been traveled, and that's where we believe that our philosophy has been that the idea was never to go through life, but the idea was to grow through life. And I think the fact that everybody here in Udaipur all have grown through over the period and over the decades.
Excellent. And I'm going to come back to you in a bit and ask you about the first celebrity wedding that happened, but we'll go to the other panelists now. So, Smita, you mentioned about 21% or 31% contribution, 23% contribution. How have you seen the growth of segment of this contribution? What was it like, say, 5 years ago? If it's 23 now, what was it? Has it grown in share?
So the contribution has remained like around 15–16%, but there's been a growth in ADR, definitely from MICE, a 30% growth over the previous years, over 2019 numbers, if you
2019 numbers?
Yeah.
A 30% growth?
Yes. Okay. So there is an overall growth is what I'm trying to say, but yeah, the MICE.
And is that a factor that you also opened some hotels with larger convention spaces over the last few years?
It should happen, yes.
Is that also a factor?
Yes, and that's also a factor. And when we're going out there and developing hotels, that is a factor that we are considering, you see. Yeah, MICE is so significant, we can't afford to fly by the seat of our pants, right? I mean, we need to have a strategy, and that is what we sort of are going out there.
So which is your largest convention space in the country today?
So that would be Grand Chula, and we have 35,000 square feet of
square meters.
meeting. Yeah. And the largest hall would have about 2,500 square meters.
Thanks. Shampa, MICE contribution to Marriott's performance in India today, and or let's say 2022, and what was it like a few years ago? Did you see a jump?
It's been double-digit growth, as I said before. I think it hovers between 30% to 40%, depending on destination. Resorts do a lot more better.
40%? Yeah.
There are destinations We spoke about, like, for example, last year, we did 600 crores just alone in wedding segment. And that's an indicative of how much more we do, how much potential we have with corporate MICE, weddings, association business, which is beginning to be seen in India. You know, as we all know, India only gets 1% of the international MICE business.
Right.
So there's so much more. And if you read the CII's report or the Brand Equity Foundation report recently, India is growing at a 20%. I think we are somewhere hovering on the same growth across, give and take. MICE alone can create 5 million jobs. That's the potential of this segment. And we are seeing that happen with, as we open more and more conventions, more hotels, which can take large format hotels. We have the marquee coming in few years from today that will have 40,000 square feet of.
So as on date, which is your largest hotel in terms of convention space?
The largest hotel, couple of them actually that match up with each other, like the Westin in Powai has a flexible space of more than 45,000 square feet area.
So that's the largest?
The Sheraton in Bangalore, in combination with Marriott, of course, can offer similar.
What about the JW Golfshire?
The JW Golfshire, like
as
I said, that won't be the largest. You know, it's flexible, inflexible. You know, Dhruv, when you say the largest, it's about not just the structured wall that you are confined to in terms of square meters, but spaces. Flexible outdoor, indoor spaces. And if I take that, there are more than 15 hotels in India today that offer more than, 20,000 square feet and above MICE solutions to the planners.
Awesome, great. Amit, over to you. Same question. How do you see the market share of MICE as a segment in the performance of Hyatt's portfolio in India? And how do you compare this to a few years ago? Has it grown in terms of share or it's been stable?
So for us, I think in 2022, we did around 30% of our revenue came through the MICE segment, including weddings. And I would say out of that, approximately 18% was focused purely on MICE, and around 10% was weddings, pretty much just weddings. I think what we have seen in 2022 is the increase in rates have been pretty good, particularly the rates that we are getting for weddings compared to what we were seeing earlier. So we have seen almost double-digit growth on that. So that's something that is very positive.
Has this 30%, what was it, let's say, 5 years ago in terms of contribution? And I'm going to come to the rates after that.
So if it was, let's say, 100 rupees 5 years back, so today you're looking at, I would say, close to 150. So approximately.
So this is more price-led or demand-led?
It's more. I think it's more price-led in 2022 is what we saw. But yes, there has been. It's volume-led as well. I wouldn't say it wasn't volume-led either. So I think it's both. But price in 2022 was a major factor. Okay. So that was important.
Thank you, Laure. Same question, and I hope I can hear you this time because I couldn't. I was just nodding my head the last time, as though you were speaking in French, and I can't understand it. So
it's the accent, Laure.
No, it's not. I think it's just the audio.
The MICE contribution for us is between 25 to 30%. So I don't have the figures of a couple of years ago, to be frank, but for sure it's increased, especially since we are increasing our presence on the luxury segment. So at the moment we have 55 hotels operating in India, about 10,000 keys. And 21 of those are Ibis hotels, another 21 Novotel hotels, which can be very strong as well on MICE, as we know. And then we have Grand Mercure, Sofitel, Fairmont, and Raffles. And the Raffles, for instance, opened last year. Again, a strong, pretty strong on the wedding, on the niche luxury wedding segment. The Fairmont in Jaipur has been a star performer in terms of MICE with almost over 100 weddings last year. So and we are opening we're going to open new luxury hotels with large meeting space. Like for instance, we have a Fairmont coming up in Udaipur, so which will have very large meetings.
What, 350 rooms, right?
340, yeah. So yeah, very well, very nice. So therefore, the contribution should remain pretty strong for us as we're going to open some other big boxes with big MICE facilities.
Right. And on the same point, for the international brands, for three of you, the question is that how did this contribution compare with, let's say, the rest of the region, Asia Pacific, or just a guess?
Yeah, no. Oh wow.
You said 25% in your case, right?
It's a bit of a tricky question, right? Because the markets would be so different. If you look at a market like Dubai, for instance, corporate leisure would be extremely strong, although we have a lot of MICE hotels. So it's difficult to compare to the rest of the region. I would say we might be a bit higher. Maybe in India?
In India?
It might be, yeah, but okay. Again, difficult to compare. The markets are so different. If you look at a market like Singapore, so we would be, again, so MICE market would be very strong for us because we have the tiny 2,000 key Fairmont Swiss Hotel complex, you know, with the...
oh yeah, that's really tiny, let's not talk about it.
With the convention center with 10,000 square meters. So, and again, Novotel and Mercure complex with meeting space there. So it really varies between the markets.
Sure. Hyatt's experience in terms of the region, you compare in Asia Pacific or Middle East, how do you compare?
So yeah, if you look at Asia, I think over there the main difference in India is the weddings. So MICE as such, if you look at it, is pretty much business focused.
Right.
So that contribution on an average is around 20-25% in Asia Pac. But in India, the wedding business is the one that makes the difference. So that takes you to around 30-35%.
And that's so unique about India. And we're going to spend a few minutes talking about weddings specifically. But just looking at the total contribution, it's heartening to see that India is, delivering well when it comes to large events. Shampa?
I think no different, but for us, I think Asia Pac leads in a very big way because of the scale. Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand, India, Australia with 65 hotels, just as compared to 5 years, there was only a couple of them. So, and all our brands, right from the Ritz-Carlton to the St. Regis to the Marriott to the Sheraton, the Signature brands today are focused on MICE and groups. So that significantly also contributes to the design, planning as we build more hotels in that direction. So APAC followed. Of course, I'll not talk about North America because you have the largest, 60% of our distribution still lies in North America. But I think I must say that EMEA as a region is also growing very fast with Africa, with our takeover of Protea Hotels, the brand that gave us a great distribution of 100+ hotels in that continent. Dubai is a great testimony to that with more than 70+ hotels. It's a hub of, MICE, epicenter of, I think, international MICE as a venue. Right. So I think, yeah, it's distributed overall, but I think that's a great story to tell for India and Asia Pacific at large, across the continents. Yeah.
And do you think in the recovery period over the last 2-3 years, at least I know of stories of hotels located in places like Bangalore, Whitefield, where there was no IT is driven business, it was nil. And those hotels actually had weddings taking place for recovery and survival at that time. So very interesting stories. But on that point, let me just start with Smita and we can kind of go around very quickly on this. How do you see the wedding segment ADRs compare with the rest of the group ADRs? Are they much stronger, I would imagine? And how do you see the future of that?
Yeah, definitely. Right, so 37% over the ADRs of hotels across our group. So 37% premium over group, yeah, the wedding segment. So phenomenal. Well, that is just the ADR. How about the overall spend? So the TREF bar is significant as well. So many hotels out there are doing, a kind of a lakh a day per room. Based on, from the segment.
how much does somebody have to pay for a wedding at one of your hotels?
So, good question. So, at the end of the day, the important part here that we need to understand is the more the sugar you put in the tea, the sweeter it's going to get, right? So, the idea here is that one thing that Udaipur or Rajasthan from that perspective has got a bit of a backlash of being one of the most expensive places. And I think that's really not fair, or that's really not true for the largest part of it. And but I think what people need to understand is the fact that the overall logistics of what all they want to do, and people in these sort of occasions, and rightly so, do get carried away, right? So there are a lot of things that they wanted to do, and one thing is, I think, exceptionally straightforward and very clear, that we are today the youngest nation in the world, right? We have one of the youngest populations in the world, and they have a mind of their own today. Right, it's not like the olden days where, you know, your dad or mom told you that this is what you need to do, and, you know, the line's drawn and they're going to adhere to it. Today, they have a healthy discussion. Today, they come back with a lot of, you know, rational sort of points, what they wish to do and how they wish to do it. So the overheads of a lot of things, like they want the greatest entertainment. People want to call singers that have, or performers that have never been to this part of the world. And perhaps the first time they've even traveled to this continent or this region or this area. Now that is not going to come cheap. You know, that is something that is not going to be just off the cuff or by the way.
Sure. So in terms of your want to get a particular segment, fill up your hotel, would wedding be top of the list?
Sorry?
Your want to fill up the hotel with a particular segment, would the wedding segment be top of the list for you?
Absolutely, without a doubt. So today, and that's something that's been done over a period of time. It's just not happened by the way. So these are things that have been worked on very, very strongly. So a huge chunk of it comes from the wedding segment, and that's when you be able to talk about a complete buyout, because you don't want people in the corridors or things like that. You want to make sure that the experiences of the rest of the guests are maintained, and that's something that we always have a challenge with. You know, you can't give half of the hotel to a person that is with the wedding, and half of your people are there with the FITs, then that becomes a bit of a mess. But the general idea is that we try and block off the entire areas, and the numbers fortunately support all of that in what we try and do, and the venues. So it also helps the entire pocket around the area as well to fill up too, because not only it's just not us who can fill up
fills up the entire city.
Exactly. Yeah, and the idea was to be able to not have your own pie and eat it, but to have a pie but which can be shared. And I think which is a great example.
Look, you've grown the pie. You know, you have a big Fairmont and a
yes,
Raffles and Udaipur. So coming back to that, do you share the same sentiment, Laure, in terms of, you know, weddings driving premium over other segments, and therefore you are building hotels that are catering to that market? Is that the sentiment with Accor as well?
Can you repeat the...
we were talking about the weddings.
Not really
okay.
Well, yeah. No, don't
I don't know whether I need to get up, but about the wedding segment.
Yes.
About the wedding segment, how bullish are you? Do you share the same sentiment that weddings is driving premium at your hotels?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the wedding segment has been key for us, especially for the last couple of years. So, as I said, that in Jaipur, we hosted over 100 weddings at the Fairmont last year. I'm sure we'll beat that number again this year. Raffles Udaipur, it's already been growing with a couple of celebrity weddings which just happened, so I'm sure it's gonna help further. So surely, I think we'll see both. We'll see smaller weddings and large weddings. Interestingly, as I said at the beginning, both trends are here, and I think we'll be here for a while. And that's true as well for abroad. So for us, Indian weddings are of course a major segment for our hotels in the Middle East and in Asia as well. So, for instance, one of the most high-profile weddings hosted in the UAE last year was an Indian wedding at the Raffles de Palm. So over 700 guests. It was absolutely magnificent. It was all over the press. But we see, I mean, for instance, in Bahrain, at the Sofitel we hosted, I think, 14 Indian weddings last year, and we already have 12 on the books right now. So
this is the outbound.
Yes, so that's a very strong market as well for us.
And that's a question on that is it just happening on its own, or there is a strategy in place that you have for outbound from India to the Middle East and other destinations?
So what we do is we partner with Indian wedding planners as well as tourism bodies, right? To come and promote the destination, so as part of the promotion of the destination, so to promote indeed our expertise and our venues for Indian weddings in other destinations, and we have of course tailor-made programs to show that we can cater to that market, that we can host multiple day weddings as well. So it's been very successful. So as you know, Dubai is a very popular place, but we've had quite a few weddings as well in Turkey. So at the Swiss Hotel overlooking the Bosphorus in Istanbul. So it's really with magnificent views of the Bosphorus. So it's a very popular place for weddings, and especially Indian weddings. But as well at the Rixos in Antalya, where we have massive MICE facilities by the beach. So for us, it's a key segment indeed.
Awesome. Amit, let me ask you, what are the new concepts when it comes to MICE and offerings to the customers? What are the new concepts that Hyatt has rolled out over recent years?
So Hyatt has been redefining the experiences for events. What we want to make sure is for a typical event, it's not just laying down the chafing dishes in the pre-function area. We are creating a series of live kitchens over there. So for example, the mansion at the Hyatt Regency Delhi, or the Udeta concept that we have recently rolled out at the Alila in Goa, or the campus at the Grand Hyatt in Gurgaon.
Can you spend like 30 seconds talk about campus for those who don't know what is campus on the audience?
So campus is basically, so it's basically like if you go to a foreign university where you have the campus kind of environment where we have the idea is where you can easily share the knowledge, as well as you have the nice live open kitchen concept with very residential kind of event space. So you can even have, I think it all depends on the market as well. What kind of market exists there and how we need to go after it. We're also looking at in some places where we're doing something called a white box or a white hall kind of concept. Because what's happening in India is, especially with the large weddings, you have event organizers and decorators. Owners are already spending crores of rupees on creating some kind of ambience there. So if you have a very overpowering kind of ambience in your banquet space, that clashes with what the event organizer is trying to do. So we have created a very plain, simple white box kind of a concept with mood lighting, where they can easily create whatever kind of concept they want to, the event organizer wants to create. We're also looking at, particularly in places like Andaz in Delhi. So what we did was, when we were in the planning stage, we actually invited a lot of event organizers, try to understand the market. So they mentioned that we don't want any chandeliers in the banquet space, in the ballroom that we have. We actually decided that we will have, I think there are 16 hooks in the ceiling from which you can hang a Harley Davidson bike. So that's the weight they can take. So you can, and so the trusses and all those things can be hanged from there. And it's a very different kind of a concept. The other thing which we looked at is they mentioned that make sure that we can actually have a car drive into the banquet space. So we have made sure that the width of the doors in the banquet space is large enough that you can just roll out a car. So in fact, interestingly, every car launch that happens in Delhi happens at Andaz in Delhi because of that reason. So there's a lot of planning that goes into it, and we make sure that we sit down with our design team, with our operations team, and we work a lot on designing different. We look at the market and then we see what is that we need to do with that space.
Awesome, great concepts there. Shampa, we just had a session on Metaverse this morning. You were not here in the room at that time, and And therefore, the leading question is that how has Marriott invested in technology when it comes to MICE? I know there are some programs called Meetings Imagine, and you can also book meeting spaces. Tell us a little bit, spend about a minute or two, tell us about a little bit about how Marriott has invested in technology when it comes to MICE.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. Firstly, we are very passionate about groups and meetings. And with that same passion, I think there has been a significant progress made so far. To give you an example, you just touched upon, alluded to Meetings Imagine. What that does to a planner is it's a platform wherein you have a bouquet of tools and inspiration gallery that offers be it a setup, to a menu, to a very high-octane experience that has never been seen or executed before, coming in from across the continents of 8,000 plus hotels of Marriott. So it's all sitting on the platform. So a planner can just go in to the platform, pick and choose depending on the profile of the event or the purpose of the event. So Meeting Imagine is taking you away from just chairs and tables. It is bringing you back to what are you here for? What is the purpose of the meeting, and what is the outcome that you want to derive? So that has changed the landscape. The feedback is phenomenal. We have only further improvised it to launch Redco Direct. Redco Direct is an app which is wherein a planner sitting anywhere in the world can make changes real time, be it temperature of the room, change the temperature of the room, refill, just changing the rooming list or attending to attendees' specific unique request and so on and so forth. Now imagine you're empowering so much your planner that he could be sitting in XYZ location and the meeting could be in India, but he's still influencing and much in control of the outcome that he wants to desire. Similarly, we have recently, I don't know if you have seen the news, we just joined hands with PCMA and Group 360. What it does is we now have proposals sitting on our website, which is Bonvoy Events, for small meetings which could be defined as a vector of anything below 50 rooms to 75 rooms max. You have defined proposals that can be extracted at a press of a button. These are technologies behind the scenes that has been invested by the Marriott. They are here in India, they are elsewhere. And I think one of the most important things that we'll continue to do is how do we bring in design functionality for today's traveler who are asking for natural light, with airflow, ventilators to, you spoke about, small intimate meetings. How do we take them away from individualism to tribalism, which is a trend that we are seeing in MICE and so on and so forth. So I think there's lots happening in this space, but I think Marriott has been in the forefront of design and innovation. I think we'll continue to do so.
Right, thank you. That's a great point. Smita, anything that you like to add when it comes to technology or new concepts that ITC is implementing?
Yeah, so on sustainability, we've had groups in MICE stay with us because for this reason. I'm sure most people know that, we're one of the largest hotel chains who have, the largest amount of LEED Platinum. 11 out of our 15 ITC hotels are actually carbon neutral. For this reasons, we are getting a lot of these queries when it comes to sustainable events, carbon neutral events. So this is what I have. In terms of technology, we are still developing.
But in anything to do with technology or new concepts in terms of space planning? That's what I meant.
To what Amit said, in terms of space planning, definitely. Modular spaces are the way to go. Also, so you can have a Google pop-up office in the event space, and then 3 days later it could be a big fat Indian wedding, and that is what allows for it. So this is what is happening. Also, a natural light, as Shampa mentioned. You know, many things, there's so many things that we are doing in terms of space planning. For example, the tech booth out there. So how can that be more discreet? Are we placing the cameras because now we're sort of having hybrid meetings more often? Are we thinking, when we're doing new hotels, we're thinking 10 years ahead. I mean, we're thinking about can we get hologram? Can the audience sitting, can they do a presentation through their mobile onto the screen? So all of this is happening, and this is where we are going. But definitely in terms of design, modular banquet halls or meeting spaces is definitely happening.
And you touched on sustainability, and that's a very interesting topic, and I meant to ask that. And let's start from Lakshyaraj, that nothing compares to preserving the heritage and the old architecture of India, and that's what you and your family have done over the years. And that really is a starting point of sustainability. So tell us a little bit about the efforts that have gone into making these palaces and the beautiful locations more sustainable in your experience.
I think if I say that we've done anything to try and make them sustainable, I think it's going to be a lie. So the fact of the matter is that they were always sustainable since the time of inception. The fact that they were built with that ideology. They were created with those materials. They were made with lime so that it can breathe. The reasons why they are standing today for 500 years or 700 years is because of the fact that that was the thought process by which they were originally built. And people today need to understand that we are not here creating or building sustainable models. We are restoring sustainable buildings. So we are not tampering with them. The idea is for the natural things to be just natural, not to poke and prod them. When you don't poke and prod something, and I think it flourishes better. So all the people over the generations that have come have not kind of tampered with the structure, and that is what has been the beauty of it. And I think the one way I think we can say that we have helped sustainability grow is through the families that are actually working on restoration. And I think this is a beautiful journey and a beautiful reality and not a story. And I don't like the word story just because it gives you a factional sort of a feeling, but this is a reality that kind of actually is happening on the ground. So one of the monuments that was built by a family about 480 years ago had promised us, or 500 years ago, had promised us saying that this is not a structure that you will need to touch for the next 300 or 350 years. And believe it or not, the same family came back and restored that particular building about 10 years ago. And they came back and promised us that for the next 300 years, you do not need to touch this building.
Wow, excellent.
So, and that is still being used today, it's still being respected, and obviously some people say to us that we are exceptionally harsh or inflexible, and that's perhaps one of the reasons that we don't allow them to go hammer and tongs, start whacking nails for that one day or that one night that they wish to have an event on or something like that. But the fact that this entire, the city was built on that particular model. And these are man-made lakes, these are man-made buildings, how nature and man has worked together and not against each other. And that's one of the reasons why Lake Palace in the middle of the lake, Jag Mandir in the middle of the lake still stands 300 years or 400 years later is because of the fact that, you know, we are not trying to fix something that ain't broken.
Wow, excellent. Shampa, on sustainability, you know, we've been hearing these words over the last few years about carbon neutral meetings and stuff like that. Tell us some real life examples of how these are taking place in the Marriott world today in India.
There are many examples, but I'll talk about one significant ones. I think it starts with local sourcing. 90% of our sourcing, be it for groups, meetings, or what goes into the buffets today is through local sourcing, and that's a huge commitment. We are also looking at how do we reduce water intensity. We have a goal of 30, we are somewhere at 18, but it's growing. We are looking at reducing, we have done, in fact, yesterday, I must tell you, Tony Capiano, our chairman, just opened the 25th EV station at the new Tribute Mulberries. And the goal is by mid next year we should have 100 EV station installed.
But just restrict this to a meeting, for a MICE event. I mean, how are we looking at bolstering the effort towards making it more carbon neutral? So what's happening in the Marriott world today, specifically for meetings?
For meetings?
Yes,
specific to meetings?
Yeah, we're celebrating MICE, so we'll just stick to that. Yeah.
Oh, that's lots. So to begin with, as I said, food, changes in the menu. We have vegan, we have more organic. We have, because this is what the travelers are asking for, this is how the RFQs are coming to us. We are looking at reducing carbon in terms of application, be it how they're coming to the hotel, reaching the hotel. Like for example, we offer in our proposal a carpool. I don't know how many of us in this room are doing that, but Marriott is the first in doing so. That directly talks through the carbon emission reduction and so on and so forth. It's part of our standard proposal. The third one is, of course, no use of plastic, single-use plastic. That's gone away right from the amenities in the room to conference rooms, lighting, reduction in terms of how we are playing the part in the functionality when asked by the planner, and what are the guidelines by way of which we are influencing that decision. These are a few examples that we're doing. Are we there 100%? No. We are learning each day. But the first, I think before I hand over the mic, we have now a green certification course that we are offering to the meeting planners so that they learn how can they do more sustainable meetings. Okay. So that's one thing I think which is most significant in Marriott.
So Marriott has brands specifically that cater to large MICE, right? And they are large hotels. There's Marriott Marquis, the brand. You have Gaylord hotels in the US. And Accor has what, 50 plus brands right now?
No, it's...
is there any of these 50 plus brands that caters exclusively to MICE and big events? Or you have some of those that are
It's only 42. So it's only 42 brands.
It's only 42. Oh gosh. Okay, sorry. You have a target of 50 then.
Yeah. So I mentioned that to our chairman. So we, out of the 42 brands, so some of the brands are stronger on the MICE segment, if I may say. So we've either it's because it will be brands like Fairmont, for instance, which are originally large hotels. So for instance, for Fairmont, the average size of our hotels is 400. 400 keys is the average hotel size over the existing network, and we have a few which are even over 1,000 keys in North America. So it's originally large-scale hotels which are well suited for MICE, therefore, with large meeting facilities. But then it's as well about being grand hotels in the heart of the destination. So being the place to have the black tie gala event of the city, to have the wedding anniversaries as well, so every type of celebration. So the Fairmont is therefore a very strong brand on that segment. And then we have brands like Pullman, where we've developed the dedicated programs like the Pullman, the Business Playground program, which is about so where we have even designed custom-built furniture with technology which are integrated in the furniture. So we have as well for the food and beverage, we have a specific offering with now 70% guilt-free options for the breaks. So every brand, most of our core brands, if I may say, would have indeed a meeting offering.
Okay, great, thank you. Amit, this is a very honest question, and maybe you and I should just talk about it with everybody here in this room. When it comes to mid-scale and MICE, India is a very unique market, right? You have destinations where you need social events, but the room rates are traditionally low. International brands have often hesitated to be in that space. We have a mid-market or upscale hotel, but we cannot handle large meeting spaces, and therefore we find it a problem to go to these kind of markets. Is that a problem which is changing now when it comes to the mindset of international brands? for India specifically?
Yeah,
Well, I mean, would you do now a 1,500 square meter meeting space with a Hyatt place? Basically, that's the question.
Yeah, we would surely do that now, which we wouldn't think otherwise 10 years back. So we have evolved. We are seeing there is, so you may not be able to do extremely large event spaces, but yeah, we're looking at small to moderate kind of event spaces in Hyatt Place hotels. So 5,000, 6,000 square feet, 7,000 square feet event spaces, we are able to do. And when I'm say these numbers, they are net, not including pre-function area. So we are open to that, depending on in which market, if there is a demand in that market. So we are open to that, yes.
Okay, that's good to see, because it's taken a long time to get to this point, isn't it, right?
Yes,
and
it took us some time.
I don't speak for Hyatt, I speak for generally all players, and I think some of the domestic players were quick to realize that there's an opportunity in that segment, and therefore they deployed their mid-market brands with larger meeting spaces and realized there's a potential to benefit from that segment.
Yes.
I think time's up, and do we have any questions from the audience? All right, if there's no question from the audience, maybe I'll ask you a question.
I have a question. If they're recruiting, I can send them my CV.
All right. He wants to send you his CV. Do you have a position for him? Okay, we'll talk outside. But I have a question for you if you have 2-3 minutes. Your next dream destination for creating a unique MICE facility outside of Udaipur?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think there is huge potential in Udaipur that is still left. And I think if there needs to be, I think we still need to navigate more and understand more about our own city at this point in time. But otherwise, if you ask me, I think India itself or Rajasthan itself, any place that you close your eyes, take the map, put your finger on it, and trust me, it'll have the potential, because that's exactly how Udaipur was 30 years ago. So, and I still feel that where we've reached today, there is a long way to go. We haven't peaked and we're still climbing.
All right, great. If you have a question for each other, you can ask right now. We have 30 seconds and we'll wrap it up. He's sending his CV to you. Do you have any question for Shampa? Oh, nothing. Great, well, thank you for being such good panelists, and thank you very much. I enjoyed so much talking to you.
Thank you, Dhruv.
Thank you.